This is a cricket podcast.
Speaking of England,
England
has gotten a bit excited this week.
Bazball!
Two mates obsessed with the game.
You know, a direct hit in cricket is so underrated. Like, it's so satisfying.
I think it is. I think the sound of the ball on the stumps is something that is so satisfying as a cricket fan.
Covering all the on-field action.
My big question here is, though, does any player actually want David Warner to be captain?
This is the Back of a Length podcast.
It's another episode of Back of a Length, Season 2, Episode 9. Welcome to everyone who's listening. Welcome, Renee.
Hello. Great to be here.
Hello. We've got a bit of a pick and mix this week. There's been a few bits and bobs going on around the international scene, and we're going to preview the Big Bash, which starts this week as well.
Yes, we
Big
are.
Bash.
Big Bash. But we thought after such good feedback on last week's episode with Ali, we'll start by looking at the women. So White Ferns played Bangladesh on Sunday in the first ODI of their series. And I got to tell you, Mark, I think we, as in the Suzie Bates Appreciation Society, are back in action for the season.
SBAS, we are here.
We are here.
That's
She's
the
called...
acronym of Suzie Bates Appreciation Society for those who weren't able to put that one together.
Well done. 93 on Sunday, 93 not out for Suzie Bates, her 30th ODI 50, and the White Ferns were chasing in this innings, so she couldn't close out her three figures that she got the total before she could get to 100. So, I mean, they say that they don't care about milestones, but...
I mean, to be fair, not out is probably better for her average than if she were to get 100 and get out. So, you know, peaks and troughs, swings and roundabouts. Another outstanding innings by Suzie Bates. We spent most of last season giving her as many superlatives as we could find. We've actually run out.
Yeah, we ran
this
out.
Season.
Maybe Suzie Bates, like it could just be like, oh, she did a Suzie Bates.
I do think Suzie Bates is probably, it's just a vibe.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever do something amazing, you just go, do you know what I did on Saturday? I did a Suzie Bates.
Yeah, I'm going to do this. We're going to do it. We're going to introduce this as a thing. Suzie Bates' innings, though, on Sunday, supported by Maddie Green. Fun fact, that was the first time Suzie Bates and Maddie Green had ever batted together in an ODI.
That's an interesting fact.
Yeah, I have noticed Maddie Bates
I'm surprised
I am surprised. Maddie Bates has been elevated up the order since the World Cup, coming in at 4 now instead of 5, with I believe Amy Satterthwaite would have come in before her, now retired. So, I mean, not a little bit surprising. I mean, not completely unexpected, but yeah, it's good to see.
I guess when you think about it
together.
Yeah, if you look at the top 4 from the World Cup at the start of this year, you'd have Suzie Bates, Sophie Devine, Mealy Kerr, and then Amy Satterthwaite coming in. Chances are that all of those 4 are going to make runs, or, you know, you've got that much firepower at the top of the order that Suzie Bates can probably continue to do Suzie Bates, and she'll either get a massive score and others will bat around her to the point where you probably don't need 5, 6 or 7 to come in, or Suzie Bates just unfortunately doesn't quite get that many at the top of the order.
And that is sort of what did happen in that World Cup, but it was a good 59 for Maddie Green. She's really coming through as that sort of middle order anchor, which I think the White Ferns need, and I'm a big fan of Maddie Green, so great to see her get a score. Meanwhile, when they were on the field, we had Jess Kerr with best figures of 4 for 23. Very good.
Solid effort. Solid effort. I do like Jess Kerr.
I really like Jess Kerr as well.
Super bowler.
She is a super bowler. And also shout out to Lauren Down for probably the throw of the match to dismiss Sultana there of the wickets. It was like pew, like a Nerf gun came out of her hand and went straight to the wickets. Direct hit.
Pew.
You know, a direct hit in cricket is so underrated. Like, it's so satisfying.
I think it is. It's almost... I think the sound of the ball on the stumps is something that is so satisfying as a cricket fan. Even when you see people get bowled through the gate, for example, and as soon as you hear the clatter of the ball on the stumps, you just get a little bit excited. You're like, I do. Amazing. Like, just like, oh my God, amazing. But we are also pretty sad people, so it doesn't take much to get us excited.
I should make it my ringtone.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting ringtone. Fair enough.
All right, so New Zealand will play Bangladesh in a second ODI on Wednesday, and then a third one towards the end of the week. So New Zealand, they should win the series. Bangladesh. I was sort of thinking about this, and I was like, oh, Bangladesh is kind of the equivalent of the Black Caps playing someone like Ireland or Netherlands. It is a development tour, but the Bangladeshis are throwing a few hurdles at the White Ferns. Alam was bowling and she got Divine and Kerr in consecutive balls, so a little bit of a fright there for Millie Kerr.
Yeah, a bit of a blip in what is an otherwise tremendous record. Yeah, it's a bit of a development tour, but I think Bangladesh are actually an underrated side. They've got some really good players. They just have maybe like 4 or 5 good players, and the rest maybe don't have the experience or maybe the skills at international level. So I think once they can find a consistent 11 with good skill all round, you know, you look at the Black Caps and they've got people who can contribute in every position. Bangladesh just aren't quite there yet. So I guess that's the idea behind a development tour. And they've not played anywhere near as much international cricket as the likes of White Ferns, England, Australia, India, etc. So, yeah, you know, good signs for them, and hopefully something that they can crack on with. As much as we want the White Ferns to win, it would be nice for the White Ferns to also be challenged a little bit going into a T20 World Cup.
Yeah, because this will be their only tour prior to that World Cup. We hope for some warm-up games, of course. But, yeah, this is where they need to sort of hone their skills before going into another World Cup just 1 year after the ODI World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. So we said last week we'd like to see a lot more international women's cricket. And, you know, we do have 2 major tournaments in the space of 12 months, which is great. And, yeah, hopefully New Zealand can take this form into the World Cup and perform really well. And hopefully, you know, meet England in the final and England win.
Not like this again. All right, speaking of England.
Someone
has gotten a bit excited this week.
Bazball!
Bazball!
It's a term that I hated when it first came out,
Same.
and now I'm on board with it.
Are you
it
on
is in
Bazballed with
Anyway, that wraps up the episode. Thanks everyone for listening. Good God. I say that, but if I'd have said the same, I'd be absolutely crammed with laughter. So, yeah, I like that one, to be fair. I'm not sure anyone else will. But yeah, Bazball is in full effect. England playing Pakistan at the moment in a 3-match test match series. First test, absolute road of a pitch. And England racked up over 600 in the space of just over a day.
It's a lot of runs.
They scored 500 runs in one day.
That's
500 runs in one day of test match cricket. It's incredible. Second test, not so many runs. England batted first, won the toss, batted first again, and they were all out after 62 overs, 63 overs, something like that. But they did manage to make a relatively respectable score. Then Pakistan came into bat, and England bowled them out for the tail, wagged pretty much. There was only a couple of scores at the top of the order with Babar Azam. He made 79, I think, as top scorer. And the England quicks did the work in the second innings as well to bowl Pakistan out. It was a really, really tight game, and it was such... It was a bit like the first test. Like, the first test was incredible because England needed to take, I think it was a couple of wickets there at the end. They had 10 minutes left before the light faded and the umpires would have called off. The umpires said they gave them 10 minutes to get the wickets, and they got the wickets pretty quickly. So that was incredible. But yeah, this time England bowlers did the work, but the bowler of the match was a guy on debut for Pakistan, Abrar Ahmed, who picked up 10 wickets on his test match debut, 7 in the first innings. He took the first 7 wickets, and you're thinking, can he do an Ajaz? Is he going to do an Ajaz? I was thinking he's going to get it. Like, England players just could not pick his wrong and his variations, and unfortunately for him, Mahmood got the final 3 wickets.
That's pretty rude,
It is. You think that you'd just just bowl outside off stump and just let your mate take 10 wickets in one innings on debut, because I can't imagine that that's ever happened before.
No.
And Mahmood was like, no, do you know what? I feel like I kind of like my place in the team. So I'm just going to chip in with 3 wickets, get 9-10 jack out, get the tail out, and then I'll look awesome as well. But yeah, England won by 26 runs, and we are 2-0 up, and it's only our fourth ever Test match win in Pakistan. So we'd won before this series. We'd won 2 Test matches in total in Pakistan. Now we've played 2 and won 2. So
that's pretty good.
Incredible effort.
I'm just keeping an eye on this series because obviously the Black Caps will go to Pakistan next and play 2 Test matches just after Christmas. And I'm looking at that first pitch where it was a road, and I'm like, this is it. This is where Will Young makes his maiden Test century. Because I have this thing where Will Young's going to make a maiden Test century this season, and I'm like backing it, so it will happen in Pakistan.
Yeah, I hope that he makes his maiden Test ton before England tour. For 2 reasons. Obviously, I would want England to win that Test match series, but also we're going to the game at Mount Maunganui, and I can't think of anything worse than sitting next to you, listening to you rabbit on about Will Young scoring his maiden Test match. I've just re-christened him there, I think. Will Young scoring his maiden Test match century at the Mount. Sorry, got a bit off track there. So yeah, hopefully he gets it in Pakistan. Rawalpindi was an absolute road. Multan was not as much of a road. There were 2 balls in particular from England's seamers that were just incredible, and a couple of balls also from the Pakistan seamers. So Jimmy Anderson got one to cut back into Babar, a cut away, from Babar. And Babar went bye-bye because his stumps got taken. And then the next over, Ollie Robinson came in, second ball, got one to absolutely hoop back in. And it was incredible. But I do think the ball of the match belonged to the bowler of the match, which was Abrar Ahmed. He managed to get Ben Stokes to just play down the completely wrong line.
Ooh, not easy thing to do.
Ben Stokes' reaction kind of said it all. He just had this look of bemusement. It's quite funny to watch. So I'd be interested to see if he does do as well in Karachi. With international cricket having not been played in Pakistan for 17 years, I have no idea what Karachi is like. It might be a road. It might be like Multan. It might be completely different. I just don't know. So it's going to be really interesting to watch that Test match and see if England can wrap up a series sweep.
Yeah, it would be good to see if they can go 3-0 up in Pakistan against Pakistan. So we'll keep an eye on that one. The only problem if they do go 3-0 up, Mark, will be unbearable. Yeah,
can't even deny that, to be honest. I will be unbearable, and you'll hear all about it. Marnus Lasagna.
Yes. Marnus Lavashane is an absolute run machine. Like, he's in such good form. He's like, in my mind, I'm like, you know when you go and play tennis and you have one of those machines and it just spits tennis balls out at you, like constantly, like a machine? That's what Marnus Lavashane is, except it's runs.
Yeah, I don't really know how to describe it. He's in, like, probably the best form of his life, which is quite a weird thing to say when you think about some of the patches of form that he's been in.
Someone made a really interesting comment to me the other day. And they said, have you ever seen a player who was so bad at domestic cricket but so good at international cricket? That is Marnus Lavashane.
That's a great shout. I was watching part of the second Test, and they were talking about how Marnus Lavashane only really got his chance because of Jofra Archer's bouncer to Steve Smith, which gave Steve Smith concussion.
Correct.
And he was the first, I think Marnus Lavashane was the first concussion substitute to be used in Test match cricket. And he had a terrible record. Well, not a terrible record, but he didn't have an amazing record as far as Australian state cricket goes. Like, there was better performers out there, but they saw something in him. And he's reaping the benefits, and Australia reaping the benefits. Now, first Test first innings, he got 204. First Test second innings, he got 104 not out. And then in the second Test first innings, he made 163.
That's crazy.
And he made 31 in the second innings, but that was off 23 balls, and they were just trying to hit out to get a quicker runs as possible. He's in such good form, and it's difficult. I don't want to speak bad about the West Indies, but it kind of is only the West Indies.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Their bowling attack isn't great, and they have been hampered so much with injuries as well.
Yeah, it is hard to say, would he be doing this well if he was playing someone like England, it's even South Africa, even New Zealand, India. But you take your wins where you are. Like, it's still an effort to go out and score 100 plus 3 innings in a row. So you can't.
He's on about 500 runs, I think, for this series, which is possibly close to what West Indies have scored across the whole series.
He is in good form, but see here, Australia will tour India in early 2023, including 2 tests. So I think that will really be where Marnus Labuschagne will sort of show how good he really is. Can he play in India in a test match, Or is he actually just one of those people who can play in Australia?
Yep. Yeah, completely agree. It'll be really good to see how he gets on, and hopefully he fails. No, joking. We like to see good players, but his extravagance winds me up a little bit. Speaking of failures, David Warner.
Oh, back in the news this week.
He is back in the news. He continues to fail both on and off the pitch. So we'll talk about on the pitch first. He has made scores of 21 and 28 in the second test. And first test, he made a score of 5 and then 48. So he's badly out of form at the moment. I think his place in the side may be being questioned now.
I think so.
Is it as a result of what's going on off the pitch, Renee?
Yeah, I want to say yes. And I think David Warner would deny this. He'll be like, on the pitch, I'm just thinking about cricket. But I think there's probably just a lot going on in David Warner's head. He must be close to pulling the pin on Test cricket and just becoming a short form specialist.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot going on with David Warner, and it's obviously showing. I can't pinpoint exactly what it is, whether it's just captaincy, whether there is a bit of beef with the Cricket Australia board, given, this captaincy debacle that's going on.
For those of you who aren't across it, he appealed his leadership ban from Cricket Australia. Cricket Australia changed the rules around sort of, appealing against sort of cricketing bans or whatever. And then there has been a judiciary which caused David Warner to withdraw his appeal against his leadership ban, and his managers come out and said that it wasn't just the 3 players that were involved in the South African scandal. It was members of Cricket Australia and the board and the coaching staff, and there's a lot more to it than what has actually been let out. And David Warner is the face of it and has taken the fall and is being treated disgracefully. So you do think if that is the case and that's how David Warner feels, then maybe he will hang up his boots for Australia and will go and take the money that will be on. It will be available in big sums for him overseas.
Yeah, I think that is inevitable and probably going to happen this season, probably next season at the latest. Were there more people involved? I don't know. It's one of those things that you kind of are like, how could someone actually do this and think this is a good idea collectively as a group? So it's really hard for me as a cricket fan to say yes if there were multiple people involved in this scandal, whereas I just believe it was probably David Warner and a young gun who
I don't profess to be Sherlock,
No.
but what I would question is, where did the sandpaper come from? I can't imagine David Warner nipped over to the South African equivalent of Mitre 10 or Bunnings to get a reel of sandpaper. It's not something he's going to do, right? Because he's a public figure. People would be like, "Oh, why are you buying sandpaper, mate?" And he'd be like, "I'm just going to sand me fence when I get back to Australia and repaint it for the summer," or whatever you use sandpaper for. I definitely think, as a coach, you have to know what your players are up to. There has to be discussions in the dressing room, right? Dressing rooms aren't big enough, even at an international level, to go, "Hey, guys, come over here into this dark corner and let's have a chat," without anybody else going, "Wonder what they're talking about. Why are they so huddled and hushed?"
Someone, actually it was Wade, one of my colleagues came out and said, have you noticed that since Sandpaper Gate, Jimmy Anderson and a few other players are getting less swing? So is there something else going on? Like, is this actually been happening a lot and it was just exposed in this one game between Australia and South Africa?
I'll tell you what else has contributed to there being less swing is not being able to apply sliver on the ball anymore. Because obviously
that's only happened in the last 2 years. Sandpaper Gate was obviously 20.
Well, Sandpaper Gate was 2019, wasn't it?
19.
International cricket
Early
stopped
2019.
in 2020.
So, okay.
So the two are pretty close together. And naturally, saliva does add weight to a ball because the moisture goes into the ball, which creates, a lot more weight on one side, which is where the swing comes from. So I don't think it's necessarily that everybody was doing it. Maybe not to the degree that Australia were doing it. Sometimes we talked about this a couple of episodes ago, and people would suck on boiled sweets to get a bit of sugar in the saliva, which adds a bit more weight and stuff like that. There was a lot of underhand tactics, but I think Australia, with so brazen with what they did, they went so much further beyond what was already happening elsewhere. And I think that's probably where they fell foul, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's been 3 years and we're still talking about it. Of course, this is obviously will come to light again with this David Warner captaincy scandal. So as it is, David Warner will not become captain of the Cricket Australia, I believe at an international level or a domestic level.
Interestingly, Steve Smith was captain for the second test, so David Warner has a point.
He does have a point. So Steve Smith was vice captain, of course, and Pat Cummins coming off the field for that game. Steve Smith naturally became captain. It's a little bit unfair because you think they should be treated the same, although I think people have always believed that Steve Smith genuinely had no idea and David Warner was a part of it. My big question here is, though, does any player actually want David Warner to be captain?
Oh, I think that's a difficult question to answer because they will obviously come out in the media and present a cohesive front in terms of, Pat Cummins was on comms during the second test and was like, we love having Dave around the group, what he brings to the team from a leadership perspective. And this was the day of this story breaking. And Pat Cummins was questioned about it. I think, internally, there's going to be obviously discussions about whether actually anybody does want him to be captain. I absolutely have no idea. What I would say is I generally do think that Captain David Warner is a different person to David Warner. I feel like he has a lot more responsibility and therefore acts a lot more maturely. Is it weird? I've only ever seen him captain of the Sunrisers Hyderabad in the IPL, but he did a pretty decent job. Yeah, with him not being at a domestic captaincy level anymore, it does take away the opportunity for him to have a good crack in the Big Bash, which starts this week.
It does start this week. The Big Bash is back. Of course, Australia's premier franchise cricket tournament. So, as being Kiwis, we put the call out on Twitter to say, who are you supporting? Because obviously, naturally, you would support your home city, but we are from New Zealand, so we do not have a home city as such. So we had a bit of a mixed response. So David said he supports the Adelaide Strikers. Stephen supports the Hobart Hurricanes.
Oi, oi. Go on, Hobart Hurricanes. Stephen, you have my eternal respect, my friend. We are going to be best mates.
You enjoy that. Okay, so we had TJ, Vincent, Lupin, Dan Cole, Linda, Sam, James, and someone called Pranjal Messi fan, that was the only name, all supporting the Brisbane Heat. A lot of love here for the Brisbane Heat. Ooh.
Do you know what's interesting about this, right, is I feel like Kiwis have such an affinity to Brisbane because there's a lot of Kiwi support for the Brisbane Broncos in the NRL as well, and a lot of support for the Queensland Maroons. So yeah, I think Kiwis have an affinity for Brisbane Heat. What will also help is that in the first edition of the BBL, Brendan McCullum opened up the baton for Brisbane Heat. So I think that also probably swayed a few people.
Right, we said Juan and Valueless Kinney supporting the Melbourne Renegades. Whoop whoop, same as me and same as Brenton, who filled in back in episode 4. Up the gates.
Wooden spoon.
No, we're going to come back season this year. Someone called the Crickaholic said, don't you mean the Renegades?
That's pretty smart, to be fair.
I quite enjoyed that one. And Rishikesh said he supports the Sydney Thunder for David Warner, so he was immediately blocked.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah, you need to delete yourself off Twitter. If Elon Musk is doing a cleanse, then you should probably be one of the first to go.
All right, and a username called Mystical just said whichever Kiwi is playing, which is fair. Just support the team.
That's fair enough. Yeah. Don't pick a team, you'll always win.
With that in mind, there are 5 options to support the Kiwis at this Big Bash. Colin de Grandhomme is playing in the Adelaide Strikers. Colin Munro is in the Brisbane Heat, having left the Perth Scorchers last season. Jimmy Neesham has gone to the Hobart Hurricanes. Martin Guptill is in the Melbourne Renegades. And Trent Bolt is in the Melbourne Stars.
Nobody taking a fancy for 6 weeks in Sydney by the sounds of it?
Nah.
Overrated anyway.
No need for that. Of course, the Thunder and Sixers are the teams there, and no love for Perth.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that, to be honest.
I think we gave all our
maybe it's just too hot.
It's too hot, and I think we gave all our love to Sophie Devine, who of course played in the Perth Scorchers in the women's edition.
Yes, that is true.
So we'll just leave her to be the shining star for the Perth Scorchers.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, we will keep an eye on the Big Bash across on our social pages, including those Kiwis in action. You can find us at Back of a Link on Twitter and on Instagram as well.
And for David, Stephen, TJ, Vincent, Lupin, Dankol, Linda, Sam, Pranjal, Messi, Fan, James, Juan, Valueless Kinney, The Crickaholic, Rishikesh and Mystical, if you do have any of your team's apparel, send us a photo of you watching the game. We'd love to see your support.
Yes, we
Especially
would.
Stephen. I'm counting on you, mate.
I would like to see the Crickaholic with a hat that just says Renegades.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I reckon you can get one online. I've already got your Christmas presents. Maybe I'll do that for next year.
Woo,
that Michael
Christmas.
Rip on wallpaper is being produced as we speak.
Stop it.
Fun times. Anyway, I think it's time for our final segment.
It is. It is time for first 11 of the week. One day we will record a proper song for that.
Or one day we'll just remember how it goes and just nail it every time. But at the moment, it's a bit ad hoc.
It is a bit ad hoc. Do you know what was not ad hoc? Was this first 11 inspired by the events in Pakistan this week? I have created the first 11 of best debuts.
Okay. Oh, this will be interesting.
All right. And at 1, I will just clarify that it is the debut of the format. So if a player played well in a test on debut, they are included even if they had previously played an ODI or T20 for their team, for their country.
That makes sense. Cool.
Yes, it does make sense, because otherwise you'll question the whole thing.
Yep, I agree.
Nobody got time for that. Right. At 1, we have Kyle Mayers. In at 2, Shika Darwin. In at 3, Devon Conway for that 200 on test debut at Lords. Still one of the greatest days.
Forgotten all about it, to be honest.
I never forget about it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And at 4, Kane Williamson, 100 on test debut. Same with our number 5, Fafa du Plessis. And at 6, Tom Blundell, never forget test debut at the Basin Reserve. Scored over 100, had a few beers in the changing room and had to walk home in his cricket whites.
What a day.
What a day. And at 7, Krunal Pandya. And at 8, Bruce Taylor. And at 9, Man of the Week, Abra Ahmed, 7 wickets on debut, as we've just said. In at 10, Navendra Hawani. And in at 11, Tim Southey with a whole lot of wickets, but more importantly, 77 not out on debut. Hasn't made a score that high since.
That was also against England, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think our players just debut really well against England.
Yeah, I also note that you've failed to put any England players in there whatsoever, so I obviously had no input into that 11 whatsoever.
Broaden your horizons. I must say there was a bit of a toss-up about whether putting Ben Stokes in that first 11, because he did also score 100 on debut.
He's got 100 at Perth in a series that we got absolutely smoked in, because it was an Ashes series in Australia, and that's just kind of how we go down there.
Actually, though, now that you've said that, he could be a contender for another first 11 I'm working on, which is the first 11 of good innings in a losing game.
Okay. Okay, well, you can add Saud Shakil to that as well, because he made 97, I think it was, in this test match just gone. Nearly dragged him over the line.
So close.
Yeah, so close, but 26 runs away.
Well.
Unlucky. Go on, Bazball.
All right.
That is it. It's a wrap.
That is a wrap. Lots of cricket on this coming week. So as we said, find us on social media to cover the Big Bash, the White Ferns, England, Australia, everything that's going on.
That is us for another week. Feel free to get in touch with us as usual. Send us those fan shirts or whatever it is that you're doing or wherever you're watching the Big Bash from. If you do happen to get to a game over the Big Bash period, send us a photo. We'd love to see it. I'd love to get to a Big Bash game one day. But yeah, see ya.
See ya.